voice actor. I've been a voice actor for 20 years, primarily dubbing anime, narrating audiobooks, voicing video games, and commercials and the like. I've worked for companies like Funimation, ADV Films, Okatron 5000, Sentai Filmworks, Bang Zoom, Cup of Tea, and a whole bunch of others. Some of my more notable roles are, let's see. If you don't name people's favorite role when you do this, people like yell at you like their favorite role. So I'm not going to hit everyone if you have them. Let's see, Ashura in Soul Eater, Cliff in Fire Emblem Echoes and Heroes, and Hajime in Ghost Stories, and Sosuke Sagara in Fullmetal Panic, and some little character named Greed in a show called Fullmetal Alchemist. I know, nobody's heard of that show. A whole bunch of other stuff. I've been doing, yeah, it's Chris Patton. Yeah, you got it. It's magic time, I promise. It's gonna be amazing. You can write home about it. Yeah, so really, you guys can just ask whatever you want. Well, I guess, except for shipping, philosophical, and creepy. But creepy, that's really a big umbrella. And I don't know, whatever. If this were 18 plus, I'd be totally down with creepy, but I guess it's not that kind of party. Okay, I'm cool with you asking me pretty much whatever you want, as long as it's not like super dodgy. Although I did, you know what's funny, until like about a year ago, I used to do a panel late night 18 plus called Chris Patton Shares Too Much, and it was all about people breaking all of these rules, and it was a lot of fun. But that's not what this is, and I don't want this convention to hate me. So I guess that being said, you can ask me whatever you want about acting or voice acting or the anime industry. I don't have a lot of answers about that. I'm just an actor. We're kind of stupid. You can ask whatever you want, really. I'll probably answer you something, even if it's completely made up. So it'll be fun. Yay! So does anyone have a question? By the way, one more rule to add to this, just for my panels. Because I'm a tremendous encyclopedic roller coaster nerd, if 15 seconds goes by without a question, I just start rambling about roller coasters incessantly until someone asks a question. So that's what you're in for. Good luck. So who has the first question? Look, this guy's like, I'm out. I'm done. I'm leaving. I don't want to hear about roller coasters. Or are you coming up to ask a question? Oh, is that what y'all are coming up here to ask questions? Oh, that's what the mic's for. Oh my God. Yay. Okay, well, come on up. Sure. Yes. Do it. It'll be fun. Is somebody texting me? No. No shipping.
So, Ghost Stories, the whole script writing process, how'd that go? I recently watched the show, and I've just seen on how crazy the script is and just about the whole process in general, and many stories about it.
There's a lot of myths that surround the dub of Ghost Stories, and at some conventions I actually do a whole panel about it because I've read so many imagine a false statement on the internet. I was shocked personally, but it happens. So there's this theory that we all went into the booth for about a week and like got drunk and threw away all our scripts and just did crazy make-em-ups into the microphone. That's not what happened. Stephen Foster actually was tasked with lampooning the show, which was basically what we were given permission to do by the original Japanese licensor. And so Stephen, it was kind of a little bit haphazard how we would do it. We would, individually go in the booth just like any other anime recording process. And Stephen would sit there with his MacBook and watch the Japanese version, and he would just type something ridiculous to say that fit the flaps, that relatively sort of fit the basic skeleton of the story. And the rule was, he was like, Patton, try this out. And he would say to you, if you've got anything funnier, do that for the take, and if I think it's funnier than what I wrote, that goes in. So that's why you see all of us credited as writers, because we all did have a hand in it. But I think to say that it was ad-libbed is a complete misnomer and very much a sort of Reddit myth. It was not ad-lib. It was actually very carefully crafted, and we did it. And I know that as the show goes on, it gets more and more dirty and politically incorrect, and my character's throwing F-bombs, like left and right. But it was done intentionally. It wasn't all just sort of like, let's throw something up in the air and see what falls down on the ground. That was the writing process, though.
Oh, Thank you.
You're welcome. Hello.
Hello there. So, are there any ad-lib lines that you've made that got in official work?
You mean in ghost stories or just in general?
In general.
I don't know. I'm sure that there's something along the way that I've ad-libbed that's... I'll tell you what has happened for sure. I write as well as act, and sometimes I'll be working on a show, and let's say I'm working on a show that maybe has not the greatest script. Well, sometimes I'll see what's written, and I'll see what the lip flaps are doing, and I'll put my own spin on it, and the director will be like, oh wait, that's better than what was written. And he'll type that in and be like, okay, that works. So yeah, that happens quite often. But that's because I've been doing this for so long, and I'm a writer, and I'm an actor, and I'm an improviser. So directors tend to trust my instincts a lot. If it was like your first week in the booth and you started trying to like rewrite lines, they'd be like, go away, get out, don't come back to our studio. But yeah, it happens. I know for a fact there are several shows where what was the one? Gravion and Gravion's Vibe. Well, I ended up writing the dub script for Gravion's Vibe because for the first one, I ended up changing half the lines, and they thought they were better than what the original dub script writer had written. So, yeah, it happens. It happens sometimes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Hello.
What was it like working for Funimation?
Gosh, well, I've worked on and off for Funimation since like 2004. Just hell on earth. I hated it. No, it's been working for Funimation is sort of an up and down thing in my case because let me take a drink of water. Before you throw shade, you must wet your whistle. No, seriously. I lived in Houston, Texas, and driving from Houston to Dallas is like driving Los Angeles to Sacramento. So imagine you had to wake up at 5 in the morning and drive to Sacramento and record all day. Well, let's say you live in Sacramento. You drive down to LA, you record all day at Bang Zoom, you finish at 10 o'clock or midnight, and you drive back to Sacramento. That sucks. On top of that, Funimation had a very different way from working than ADV did at the time, and I had to sort of adjust to that. But I made a lot of friends at Funimation. I met a lot of cool people like Mike McFarland and Chris Bevins and Clarine Harp, and that part was cool. And I got to be in a lot of iconic titles, so almost accidentally. Like when you literally almost on accident get handed the coolest villain in one of the biggest anime of all time, like you can't be too mad about that. And then from then on, I got to play like Creed Diskins from that, and Ashura and Soul Eater. Like it kind of led to me playing all these crazy villains. So I would play pretty hero boys for ADV, and then I would play possibly gay villains for Funimation. So that's been my career in Texas. Yeehaw. Yeah, but so Funimation had its ups and downs. Mainly it was just the commute that was terrible, you know. And somehow they often cast me in the winter, and Dallas is far colder than Houston is. I associate Funimation with being tired, cold, having a tired voice, and playing really creepy villains. So, yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey.
Hello.
So you are very realistically, out of all the anime that I've seen, the only actor who has had a positive impact on my life because you voiced the main character from Welcome to the NHK.
Oh, yeah.
And I watched that entire show in 2 days.
Oh, wow.
And I curled up into a ball and I'm like, I need to make a change now.
Really?
And a week later, I got a job. So
Oh, wow.
thanks for that.
Sure.
And the existential crisis.
Can I tell you a couple of things about that experience?
Sure. Were you like channeling something? Like, what was going on there?
Okay, so how many of you have seen Welcome to the NHK? Okay, wow, that's pretty cool. So it's about a hikikomori or a person who basically has shut themselves off from the world, that just shut themselves in a room and is like watching anime, gaming, and watching porn. And a couple of things about that show. First off, I had gone through a large chunk of my life where I suffered very badly from agoraphobia, which isn't necessarily the same thing, but because of the agoraphobia, I would spend a lot of time in my room because I was afraid to go outside, and I would have panic attacks. And I remember the first time John Swayze told me that there was a scene coming up where I had to have a panic attack for the show, and it was a little bit, for lack of a better word, triggering, because I had to act out something that had happened to me many times in my life, and that was intense. But let me tell you something else about that show. When I was working on it, from my perspective, we don't see the whole show when we work on it. We see the parts that we're in. And even though he is the lead, I still didn't see all the stuff that was going on. Well, I thought the show was a very serious, sad, intense, scary drama.
Not to
I
say that
didn't
it's
realize.
not that too.
Well, and it does have those elements in it, but I started getting all these emails from people telling me how funny the show was. And I'm like, you're I was just like, it's like, what are you saying? But I didn't realize that it was comedic in many ways. To me, it was a tragedy. But I've had more than a few people tell me that it did have an impact on their life because they were either agoraphobic or they had quit working, they had given up on life or something, and it kind of was a wake-up call. So that's really exciting. When you decide, endeavor in life to be an actor as your career, you do it because you enjoy storytelling and because you enjoy conveying a message. It's only in your most pretentious moments that you think you're going to make a difference in the world as an actor. But every now and then something happens.
You're going to become a millionaire making a freaking dating simulator.
Right, exactly. And so every now and then you get some nugget from the universe where someone does tell you that you've changed their life, or a performance has changed their life in some way, and that's really, for lack of a better adjective, cool. So thank you for sharing that with me. Thanks. I ship it. Yes.
Right, so a less deep question. So when you're credited on something as like other roles or various roles, like what's the process of recording like just lots of small roles as opposed to one big role?
Sometimes what'll happen is like you're in there to work on a big episode character or a lead character or a supporting character, and then you'll get like an email will pop through. It'll be like, hey, send Patton over to Studio H to do some additional voice. It's called additional voices, and you say yes because it makes you an extra $100 for the day, and not because it's gonna be super fun. And you go in, and it's either gonna be additional voices or something called Walla. And additional voices is where they have you do like 4 or 5 characters, and they just kind of want you to switch your voice up and say maybe 2 lines. And so like you're an old man, and you're like a little boy, and you're like a middle-aged dude, and you're like a really old woman falling off a cliff. They need filler from someone who has kind of a versatile instrument. But then Walla, that's when you stand in a booth with like 3 or 4 other actors. It's the only time we really do this. And they run the scene, and you're all the background sounds. And you're talking about blah, 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 whatever. There was one of the first times I ever did Walla, Matt Greenfield at ADV had me do it. And it was on a big ship. And he's like, just be any one of these random pompous seafaring white British people on a ship and talk about anything. You're going to be buried. It doesn't matter. And I was like, anything? He goes, yeah, I mean, pretty much. No one's going to really hear what you're saying. And I went on this long extemporaneous monologue in a pompous British accent about pantyhose eggs. And about how my mother-in-law was so fat. And I kept making so fat. I was like, my mother-in-law is so fat. When she sits around this ship, she sits around this ship. And it was just like that for like 5 minutes. And when I finished, I was like, God, this is weird. And Matt Greenfield had fallen on the floor, and he was laughing, and he was like purple in the face. And he was like, what is going on in your brain? I said, I've been trying to figure that out for a long time. But because you were talking about pantyhose eggs. I said, I know. Remember those? Anyway, so that's what that is. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. I give really long answers. I'm kind of sorry. Yes, next.
So my question is about Fullmetal Panic, the new season.
Mm-hmm.
How were you approached about coming back for that role after over a
So
decade?
how many of you seen the 4th season of Fullmetal Panic? Yeah, so something really interesting happened with that. The week Funimation announced that they had licensed the dub, I had set into motion my move to Los Angeles from Houston. And I was like, hey, Zach, I'm going to be in LA. He goes, oh, that doesn't matter. We've got a studio in Hollywood where you can work Source Connect. So what that means is I would go into this booth in this studio in North Hollywood called Central Command. And it was me and an engineer, and then on the cans was Mike McFarland from Dallas. And we could talk to each other, and he directed me. But it was weird. It was sort of isolating, so that when I heard Lucy or Vic or Monica or whomever come through, it was like, oh, okay. Like I felt very comforted by that. But the interesting thing was, as I suspected, it was like riding a bicycle. You know what I mean? Like, yes, even though it's been 12 years since any of us have touched those characters, after you've done 3 seasons of a show, it all kind of lives within you. And it was fun. And how much have you seen?
I've seen all of it.
Okay,
couldn't
I just
stop.
have to say I found it very satisfying, and I got to do things as Sosuke that I'd wanted to do for years, and I really enjoyed that.
Which things did you want to do with him, by the way? I'm sorry. I'm curious.
The thing he got to say to Kaname in the last episode, I had wanted to say that since 2004, and I'd wanted to see Sosuke's sort of ballsy side, for lack of a, you see so much of his like almost. I've always suspected that Sosuke was very sort of affectionately based on a young military man who was on the spectrum, and that's how he's always sort of read to me. In this, it almost seems like he's taught himself how to break out of that mold when he's on a certain mission, and you get to see him be really ballsy and mean and a badass. And seeing that along with the stuff with Kaname was just like, this is everything I ever wanted. Like Lucy and I both had been like waiting and waiting. And there's going to be a Fullmetal Panic panel. Do y'all know that? Okay, it's tomorrow, I think. Yeah, so I'm sure you'll get to hear Lucy and I talk ad nauseum about how like, we got to say to each other. So yeah, but it was those things mainly that I wanted to see happen, and I finally got both of them. So yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Hi.
Hi. The fact that you mentioned Ashura twice is
Yes.
just mind-blowing to me because nobody talks about Soul Eater anymore.
Which is stupid.
True. But anyways, relating to Soul Eater, I wanted to know if you actually watched the show and if you would change the ending.
I watched almost all of it on TV when it aired a few years later. It aired on, was it Adult Swim?
I think so, yeah.
I watched most of it. No, there's nothing I would change. I mean, I figure everything that happened, that went down it went down how it should have. But would I love to see like a spin-off with an Ashura resurrection? Of course I would, yes. I think he's actually, I don't mean to piss anybody off, but I enjoyed him more as a villain than Greed. Greed is interesting because he's complex and he's sort of an anti-hero and he's sort of not really a typical villain and he's very well written. And but also I enjoyed Ashura because Troy Baker didn't also play him. But he had a level of crazy and creepy that Greed didn't have. That was really fun to play around with. Total madness, yeah. And in fact, if any of you have seen Dimension W, I play kind of the lead villain in that show. And it's funny because when I first started doing his voice, Zach Bolton was like, "Stop it! You're doing Ashura. Quit it! Everyone's heard that. Got to find a different thing." I'm like, "Oh damn, he's right. Okay, he got me." So I was really still kind of hooked into that Ashura villain mode. But yeah, no, I wouldn't have changed anything. But it sure was a lot of fun to play him.
Yeah, because apparently a lot of people are like mad about like that it ended with like friendship punch, But
That's
I don't
stupid.
know.
But
Yeah.
sometimes like I don't know, whatever. It's fine. I'm sure it satisfied a lot of people. Not
Yeah.
me. But that's okay.
Right.
It's not all about satisfying me.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Hello.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Pretty good.
Good.
So, you're okay with me asking philosophical questions?
I'm okay with a philosophical question, yes.
Okay. So let's say there's a roller coaster that's going like a bazillion miles per hour. And you can see that this track is, there's something wrong with it.
This person knows me so well already, I can tell. Okay, yes.
It's going to fling over the side. The tracks are missing, something fell down. You're like, oh man, it's going to be catapulted right into that crowd of like 10 people. And then I know enough about roller coasters to know that when it hits that crowd of 10 people, it's going to explode and they're all going to die.
Okay, well, that wouldn't happen, but okay. All right, we'll go with it. We'll go with it.
Okay, but it
would at least crush people. It would crush people.
It would crush people. They'd all
Yep.
die. Definitely. Just super fast roller coaster.
Right.
And you're standing next to like a fat guy who's looking over with you at the side of a building, and you're like, hey, he's like, hey, look at that go. That's really interesting. And a flash of inspiration occurs to you. You can push this fat person over the side of this building, and they will block the roller coaster, and then the roller coaster will explode, saving the lives of all the people who are about to be crushed by it. Is it a morally right thing to do to murder this fat man and save these 10 different innocent people that are about to be murdered by a passing roller coaster?
Can I pretend the fat person's Donald Trump?
The fat person is a morally neutral citizen.
I mean, I know this puzzle. I don't know. The way I always come down on this is, it's terrible. But like, if it's a choice between saving one against many, in very rare cases, I would have to go with saving the many over the one. Like if the one happened to be like the person that was clearly going to save the world, or like my partner, or like a close family member, then the group is in trouble. But if it's a stranger, one stranger, many strangers, I'm going to save many strangers over one stranger.
Okay. Then what would happen?
Now you're adding caveats, and that's not fair. But
Hold
go
on.
ahead.
What would happen if you were a doctor and a man walked in? He was a stranger. There were 10 people who were dying without organs. And you have the opportunity to kill the stranger, steal all of his organs, and you as a doctor have the expertise to guarantee they wouldn't be rejected, to guarantee that these people would be able to survive
Yes.
and live healthy lives.
I would quit and become a voice actor.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I mean, right? Yes. That went through my head as well. But all right.
Well, hello.
Hello.
As somebody who lives in LA, I hope you're enjoying living in Los Angeles.
I love Los Angeles.
You have to go to Six Flags, I think.
Oh, I've already been to Magic Mountain many times.
Talked to Unlocked about it.
Oh, okay. Okay, who are you on Unlocked?
Tyler's mommy.
Okay, right on. Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. Yeah, I love Magic Mountain. Love it.
I kind of have like a two-in-one question, but
Sure.
now that you're living in LA, is the networking completely different than where you were at? Is it a different style? Is it more video games in LA rather than animation? Oh God. Yes, networking in LA is its own little sort of Cirque du Soleil that you have to figure out. And yes, I've worked on more video games since being in LA than I have in my entire life in Houston, Texas. I can't talk about most of them right now because most of them are under NDA, but yeah, a lot more video game work. There's a lot more opportunity for domestic animation work, but to get that, you need to join the union and get a great agent. Well, the thing is, I'm eligible for the union. I'm SAG eligible, but then to join SAG, you have to pay $3,500. Well, so I need to get a gig that pays about $5,000 or $6,000 in one go so that I can pay rent and join the union at the same time, then get a great agent, then get open up to like the Pixar, Blizzard, Disney, Nick, all that stuff that some of my friends do that make 7 figures and live in the Hollywood Hills. That's my LA story right now. As well as saving everybody on the roller coaster, too.
I mean, right? There's a lot to navigate at once. But the cool thing about LA is that it keeps you inspired. There's a lot of sort of weird magic there. David Lynch talks about this a lot in his filmmaking inspiration, about how much he loves Los Angeles and the light there, and how it keeps you very hopeful and optimistic. And yeah, there are a lot of problems in LA, and it's a very problematic city for a lot of reasons. But if you're an artist or a creative crafts person, just driving around LA sometimes can be really inspiring. Naomi Watts recently, in an interview with David Lynch, she was talking about her LA moment, and she said right before she got the call to do Mulholland Drive, which changed her life, changed her career, she was on Mulholland Drive, and she said, I just had one of those terrible weeks. I felt like I wasn't going to get any work ever. I'd been in LA for 9 years. Nothing was happening. My career was in the toilet. And I was on Mulholland Drive, and I remember thinking, I could just drive off the edge here. I could just drive off. And she's like, for whatever reason, I didn't. And I went home that day, and the next day I went for another drive on Mulholland Drive, and it was beautiful, and the sun was coming up over the Hollywood Hills, and it was inspiring. And then, like a few days later, she got the call from David Lynch's agent saying, David wants to interview you to be in Mulholland Drive, which changed the whole trajectory of her career. So LA is just a weird, weird city, and you have to kind of hold on and be super strong and like be very tenacious about your dreams and almost be unrealistically optimistic, or else it will kind of crush you and eat you alive.
That's a teacher,
Yeah, yeah.
When you get sides for a character,
Uh-huh.
you don't mind me asking a quick second question?
No, yeah.
How much information do you get, and what are you looking for in the sides that says this is the type of voice I'm going to use for this character?
It's so funny about the sides. Do y'all know what sides are for characters? As actors, before auditions, oftentimes we're given sides. It's a little chunk that might have a small description of a character with about 5 or 6 lines that the character's you're going to say in the audition as the character. When we're at our luckiest, we also get a picture. And I say that because as primarily a voice actor, nothing guides me more than an illustration of the character. The illustration of that character defines so much about what I'm going to do with my vocal instrument. Yeah, the description will tell me sort of where he's coming from and where he might be going and what situation he might be living in, and that's cool. But it does, then they start going off into these random sort of tangents about him that I'm like, this doesn't mean anything to me. I want to see what he looks like. And when I see what he looks like, all of a sudden my voice and brain start to work together to sort of form, okay, I know what this guy's going to sound like. And then you see the lines and you're like, oh, this makes sense in the context of what I'm seeing in the little blurb I've read. So for voiceover work, sides don't play as big a part to me as the director talking at me right before the audition and the picture I've got of the character. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Hello.
Hello. So, in the show Log Horizon, great show.
Yes.
You voiced, well, a couple characters, but mainly you voiced.
William, Massachusetts.
Yeah, and he had maybe like 4 collective lines in the entire 2 seasons.
And then,
yeah, you already know where this is going.
Yeah.
He talks for 15 minutes.
it was actually an 18-minute monologue.
It was 18?
And I did it in 2 takes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
it was.
all I remember is like he won't stop talking.
He basically he talked for the entire time code of the episode, and I think he
Yeah.
was interrupted twice.
Yeah,
It's ridiculous.
And it was pretty obnoxious. But we're putting that to one side. Does the mentality of like doing 1 or 2 lines, whatever, yeah, I'm done. Like you said, $100, versus, and here's the script. Like, how does that change your mentality of when you're in the booth and when you have to do the thing?
It does. I mean, for better or for worse, you're a human, and it does change your mentality for many reasons. For one thing, you've got more to dig into. You've got more meat from which to carve, the meal of the character from. When you've got 3 lines as a character, a few things. A, I'm going to walk out of here with $75 or $200. B, I don't get a lot of information or time to shine. C, how do I develop this character in 3 to 4 lines? I'll do it my best. When you've got a script, a chunky script, and you're like, I'm going to walk out of here with thousands of dollars. I'm going to get realistic. Okay, Los Angeles cost of living, holy God. Sorry, I probably shouldn't have said holy God. I'm so sorry. But seriously, you're going to walk out with a lot more money. You've got all this beautiful, luscious text that informs you and tells you things about the character and lets you bring dimension to the character. The more text there is, the more you have an opportunity to lift it off the page and make it 3-dimensional.
I play video games because 18 minutes.
Okay, have you played a video game called Akiba's Beat? I play the main character. I was still living in Houston when I got cast in this. It was in Los Angeles. They're like, you need to come to LA, and we need you there for 3 weeks. And I said, why? They said, because we need you for 80 hours.
I worked on that game every day, 5 to 6 days a week for 6 hours a day. I have never known a single character so well in my damn life. It was just reams and reams of text. And by the time that we wrapped that game, I kind of felt like him. But it was great because by the third or fourth day, there was no doubt as to who this kid was, what he was doing, what his mission was, and nothing could really shake me up. So yeah, having loads of text, it's like, oh, it's wonderful. Yeah. Yeah. Hi.
Hello there.
Hi.
So I actually had a question kind of in line with that, but it was more of your approach to how you would take the character of whatever role you're given. And would you probably prepare it and go throughout the entire day as the character, so to say?
No. And only because that's never been the way I worked. I've been doing theater since I was 9 years old. And of course, as a theater actor, you're presented with many different options as far as methods. You know, there's Meisner, and there's Stanislavski, and there's Stella Adler, and Uta Hagen, and then there's the David Mamet, who says, go on stage, say your lines, and get off stage. I call myself sort of the smorgasbord of the methods. I do whatever works for me at the time, but I will tell you that these actors, I can name like Daniel Day-Lewis and Jim Carrey. There's several of them. I have a mixture of respect and disrespect for them because I think the trick of acting is that you don't live the character. The trick of acting is that you can turn it on and off. It's that as soon as you step on stage, you become the character, but when you leave the stage, you leave that shit on the stage. You don't take it home with you. And there are some actors that do, and it's caused a lot of problems in their lives. And I think and I'm not knocking the performances those great actors give, but what I'm saying is I don't think they're as talented as the actors who can be Jennifer Aniston one moment, and then she's on, camera is rolling, and she's whoever Jennifer Aniston is that day. Then she goes home to Justin Theroux before they broke up, and she's Jennifer Aniston again. I have a lot more respect for that. So I don't ever, I have taken my BS home with me before, but it's very rare. One time anyone seen an anime called Pre-Tier? Okay, that's cool. I played this guy named Sasame, and Sasame was a radio host, and he counseled people on the radio. And I would spend 3-4 hour sessions talking to people like this, in this sort of bishy radio host voice, trying to soothe people's lives. And I went home one night to this girl I was dating at the time, and we got into like a tiff, and I remember she was leaning up against the car, and I put my arm up against the car and I said, baby, listen, it's okay. You don't need to worry about what's going on. And she goes, are you acting at me? Because that's stupid. And I'm like, oh my God. Yeah, I'm so sorry. I'm an idiot. No, I'm very much, whether it's on stage, on mic, or on camera, I'm just like on and off. I just turn it on and off.
That's understandable. You got to keep it in the box.
You do, and I think what you do is you learn the role well enough, you get familiar enough with the role that you can do that. You know what I mean? Rather than have to just live it 24/7. You know, like when Oprah Winfrey did, I think, Beloved, and she locked herself in sheds and starved herself and whipped herself. I'm like, girlfriend. It's like Laurence Olivier once said to Dustin Hoffman, they were working on Marathon Man together. Well, Dustin Hoffman every morning was running like 5-10 miles before he got to set to get in character for the Marathon Man. And one day he gets to set, he's bedraggled, he's underweight, he looks like garbage, he's forgetting his lines, and Laurence Olivier goes, my dear boy, why don't you just try acting? And that's how I kind of feel about that.
I see. Thank you for that.
Sure. Hello.
Hello again. What is it? Well,
This is till 8:30, right? Okay, cool. I think so. Wait, talk right into it? Now it's not on. It's not on. Oh, there it is. I see the light.
Me too.
Yes.
Okay, son. All right, so What was your reaction to seeing, Greed fighting Edward Elric?
I mean, I wanted Greed to destroy him. That is a funny thing, honestly. I mean, when we first started recording that scene, I was like, oh, well, I know how this is gonna end. Like, who's gonna win? The little kid with the good heart and the blonde hair, or the big scary homunculus? I mean, but the reason I think that scene ends so satisfyingly is because sorry, you've had 15 years, spoiler alert, he kills Greed. When Greed is lying there on the floor and he's in the throes of death, that monologue he gives sort of, I think, almost lifts him up above the whole situation, and it gives him this humanity and this almost anti-hero dimension that none of the other homunculi possess. And so I think that's the brilliance of that scene. Yes, it's important for the fans that we get to see Ed defeat Greed. That's cool. Anyway, but the satisfying part for me as the actor's voice behind Greed is that I got to deliver that monologue at the end. And I think that's what kept him from being a two-dimensional character. And I think that monologue in the original Fullmetal Alchemist is what attracted so many people to Greed in the first place. It is that dimension that he had.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, how are you?
I'm doing all right.
Excellent.
Making sure this thing's working.
It totally.
Okay. I'm a big fan of Greed from the original Fullmetal Alchemist. I watched both, and
Word.
I'm not too familiar with the rest of your works, so
How dare you?
I'm sorry. But I was going to ask you is, for most of the roles you play, or at least all of them, do you see like a part of yourself like resonate in some of these characters, or do you really have to like completely be that character?
Right. So there's a school of acting technique where they say, there's part of you in every character you play. Well, yeah, duh, because it's you doing it. And then there's the become the character. And I have to say, I think as silly as it sounds, I tend to skew more towards the B option. And that's because I have a sort of philosophical view of acting that when I'm really into a character, it's a form of benevolent possession. Like, there's this character that's been created by some writer, and I've read about this character on a page, and I've invited this character into my vessel. Sorry, we're getting a little deep here, possibly philosophical. I've invited this character temporarily to share space with me. You are never not aware that you're also you, but you're letting this entity, I'm not talking about exorcist stuff here, but you're letting this thing share space in your mind and body, especially on stage. On stage, you've got to move the way the character would move, not the way you would move. And there are actors that would argue with that. Marlon Brando, right? Marlon Brando always played Marlon Brando, and he made it work. James Dean was the same way. But then there are other actors who are like, I want to become someone totally different. I'm much more attracted to that and interested in that.
So how did that play into your role as Greed?
Well, it was actually easy because Greed is so unlike me. So I remember Mike McFarlane brought me in for the audition, and he's like, you've never really played a villain before, but I think this guy would be good for you. And he showed me a still image of Greed. I'm like, oh, he's not 17 and pretty. What? How can I voice that? But that was the challenge, and he doesn't pilot a mech. Which is what I'd done up into that, since he's never seen any of my other roles. That's what I'd done up until that point. I'm just joking with you. But I looked at Greed, and I was like, okay. And then he showed me the scene, like Greed's first emergence, and I'm like, oh, okay. What would this guy sound like? And he played me the scene a couple of times, and then he let me have a go at it. And then he recorded me doing the first scene.
And by that time, I was fully into it. I was feeling it. And he recorded the whole first scene, and he goes, well, that's Greed's whole first episode. I was like, oh, really? Yeah, cool. Well, that was a fun audition. And he goes, well, actually, you just recorded your first episode as Greed. Congratulations. And that's how I got the role. Professional. No, but so it helps that he was so unlike me. Sometimes for me, it's harder when the characters are a lot like me. That's more of a challenge because then it becomes the sort of tightrope walk of like, you don't want to play you, but you're playing someone so much like you, and you have to find tiny little differences.
I see.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Sure.
One more thing.
Yes.
Whenever I get a really bad hangover, and
Where is this going?
emptying
Yes.
whenever I'm emptying my stomach and dry heaving, all I think of is
My life. Yes. Yes. Wait, so about that, that's really funny that you say that, because when I did the first take of that, Colleen Klinkenbeard was directing me. That session went until 1 a.m., a very late night in Dallas, Texas, and then I drove home to Houston, got home at 6 a.m., BT dubs. But we did the first go at the vomit and the my life, and I thought I was kicking ass, and I finished, and I look up, and Colleen is laughing her ass off, and I'm like, what? She goes, you just sound like a drunk frat boy with a bad hangover, and I'm like, I'll do it again, Colleen. She goes, yeah, you should. Okay. I'm like, all right, but yeah, so I that makes sense.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Right. Hello.
So I unintentionally realized that you were an Air Gear.
Yes.
And that was the anime that got me into manga because of the way it ended. Do you have any insights on how that went?
I have no insights on it. I can tell you that we were all really frustrated. How many of you have seen Air Gear, the anime? So, okay. So, yeah, how about that ending? It's just like, frustrating. And we were all having such a good time on it.
So you just wanted to keep going then?
Yeah, we wanted to keep going. We thought we would get to keep going. We thought maybe there'd be an OVA or something. No, nothing. Because we knew the manga went on and had satisfying endings and da-da-da, but not the anime. We were really upset about that. That was also right in that precipice time, right before ADV fully dissolved, and then later would become Sentai. So I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but we just, like me and Blake and Lucy and Monica, we were just all pissed because we were really having a lot of fun doing Air Gear. So we don't know.
Hi, how's it going?
Good, how are you doing?
Very well.
Awesome.
So, since there's been a couple of different iterations of Fullmetal Alchemist, you had a couple of different homunculi from Brotherhood and the regular version.
Right.
Was there one that you liked in particular? Like, obviously you like Greed, but did you like him like the first time around or the second time around better? And then
First off, I want to say something. I don't know why it is that there's quite a large contingency of people who don't think I'm in Brotherhood at all. And they're like, damn, Troy Baker was amazing in that fire pit death scene. No, he wasn't. I was amazing in that fire pit death scene.
Yeah.
So, and I have to say regarding that, although I love the original, because it was the first one I worked on, and because of that satisfying monologue, I liked the death in Brotherhood that I got to do, even though it hurt my voice. I liked that death. It was so epic and ballsy and just like that's what it was, that death. And it was so much fun. I don't like, because we're actors and we like to work a lot, and some of us are a little egotistical maybe, but I don't like that they split the role basically between 3 actors, but I got the sort of gimmick they were going for. But I liked the Greed I got to play in Brotherhood, yeah. Or I liked the death better. I liked the Greed better in general in the original. Yeah.
And which homunculi besides your own did you like the most? In either series.
I'm a little biased because she's a really good friend of mine, and she's absolutely crazy in all the best ways, but envy. And I love Wendy Powell. Like, Wendy Powell is hilarious and a hoot, but I love the fact that she plays Envy as almost sort of this gender-neutral weirdo.
Yeah.
Like, you never know really what the hell Envy is. And Wendy is this, like, 45-year-old woman from Texas. She's a theater teacher out in a suburb of Dallas, and she You know, she's kind of a party girl. She's had a crazy past. That's just how Wendy Powell is. And so, like, to think of her, and then you see Envy, it just makes it so satisfying to me. Yeah. So I have a special place in my heart for Envy. And I think Laura Bailey's Lust is pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. We have 11 minutes left, basically. Does anyone else want to ask a question? Anyone? Anything? Favorite color? Teal and orange. Favorite roller coaster? Steel Vengeance at Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio. Favorite Six Flags coaster? Twisted Colossus.
Can you please just say as many cool things about roller coasters that come to your head as you can?
I will do one thing for you. I will do a little party trick. I'll let two people can name me a roller coaster, and you can see how many facts I can actually list about that roller coaster to you. Which Goliath? Goliath at Six Flags Magic Mountain is a Giovanola hypercoaster. It was built in 1999, first at Six Flags Magic Mountain and then cloned at Six Flags Fiesta, Texas. The first drop is 237 feet. It reaches a speed of 87 miles per hour. On the helix after the airtime hill, you reach a force of 4.5 Gs for 7 seconds, causing most people to either gray out or possibly black out. The second half of the course is nothing but intense turns and no airtime. Therefore, the coaster has a very bad reputation. Do you have one? Wait, Great America, that's Chicago? Oh, up here in Northern California. Is that the Mine Train coaster? Oh, God. Oh, no, wait. Is it? Gold Striker. Oh, God, you may have stumped the band. I think Gold Striker is an Aero Mine Train coaster, which probably means it was opened in 1969. Aero Development, it's a family coaster. It's got 5 cars that seats 2 people across in rows of 3 each. Doesn't exceed a speed above 45 miles per hour. 3 lift chain hills, I believe. It's an old Aero-style brake system, so it's hydraulic and probably pretty lame for the most part. X2 has a very interesting story behind it. X2 is an Aero roller coaster. It used to be called X. It's developed by Ron Schilke, who is now the main designer for Rocky Mountain Construction, the biggest coaster dominant force in the world. X2 is known not only for all its controversy and problems, but also for its intensity, and it's considered a lot of people's favorite intense ride at Six Flags Magic Mountain. Before it was X2, it was called X. It's known as a 4-dimension coaster, which means that you're on suspended seats that are actually guided by a third rail that spins the seats as you traverse the course. The first drop is is close to 200 feet, so it's not technically a hypercoaster, but it's still very large. Very interesting trivia fact about that ride. In the first summer that it was open, it was so hot in Santa Clarita that summer that people were waiting in lines of 4 hours or more and fainting and passing out before they ever even got on the ride. That's all I got. Okay, I'll do one more. What? Yes. Oh, the Intimidator at King's Dominion is an Intamin Giga Coaster. This means it exceeds a height of 300 feet. It is pulled to the top of its lift hill by an elevator cable at approximately 20 miles per hour. The first drop and ensuing turn afterwards, which is this hard bank to the right, is so intense, caused so many people to black out and almost break their neck that they added a trim brake on the drop before you even go down and gain full speed. After that, you do several airtime hills and twists that are partly inspired by Maverick at Cedar Point, and it is considered one of the most intimidating and intense coasters on the planet. And it's named after Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s car. Okay, I think this is it. We got to let the other people come in. And wait. Okay, wait, really quick. I do want to tell this about coasters. So I play this game called Planet Coaster, and my boyfriend doesn't really know how to. He doesn't even ride roller coasters. But he was like, one night he was like, let me play. I want to build a coaster. And I was like, okay, you go ahead and build a coaster. Well, he thought all you had to do was lay down pieces of track in sequential order and put things and and that it would all just work. Okay. This boy builds a 400-foot lift hill, and then it went straight down into a 90-degree bank, and then did this and turned really fast. And then he's like, okay, I'm gonna test it. Well, he killed everyone. And I was like, Tristan, you have to follow the laws of physics. He's like, oh, I don't want to play this. So he went and played The Sims, which he's very good at. Okay, thank you guys for coming so much. Tomorrow I'm signing autographs, and I've got a Full Metal Panic panel with Lucy Christian. Yay!